He said I wasn't at his level. I heard every word. And 3 months later, that same man showed up at my door asking me to marry him. This is not a love story about a perfect man. This is a story about the most infuriating, arrogant, impossible man I have ever met, and how I fell for him anyway. The night it all began, my mother was practically vibrating with excitement. Two wealthy men had just arrived in town, and in our family, wealthy men weren't just news, they were survival. The Bennett family had 5 daughters and very little money. Everyone in town knew it. No one said it, but everyone knew. So when Charles Bingley walked into that ballroom, young, warm, shaking hands with strangers and smiling like he meant it, my mother grabbed my arm. "Elizabeth, look at him." But I wasn't looking at Bingley. I was looking at the man beside him. Fitzwilliam Darcy. He stood at the edge of the room like he owned it. Dark coat, straight posture, cold eyes scanning the crowd and finding nothing worth his attention. £10,000 a year, my mother whispered. I looked away. The evening was going beautifully, actually. Bingley asked my sister Jane to dance, and Jane blushed in that quiet way of hers that I loved. My mother nearly cried. And then I heard it. Darcy's voice, low, casual, not directed at me. "You're not dancing," Bingley said to him. "That girl over there, she's standing alone. Go ask her." A pause. Then Darcy. "She might be pleasant, but she is not at my level." I didn't move. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. I simply picked up my glass from the table, slowly, without trembling. Because Bennett girls didn't cry. Not in front of everyone. But that sentence followed me all the way home. Not at my level. Fine, then that was my level, and Fitzwilliam Darcy's opinion would never matter to me. I had forgotten one thing, though. Darcy had watched me walk away, and his eyes had stayed on me much longer than I knew. Weeks passed. Bingley fell completely in love with Jane. Anyone with eyes could see it. Wherever he went, he searched for her. When he danced, he chose her. When he spoke, he turned toward her. Jane, however, showed nothing, because Jane had always been that way. She smiled the same in happiness and in sadness. It was beautiful. But that day, for the first time, I thought it might be dangerous. "He needs to know what you feel," I told her. Jane looked out the window. "He knows," she said. "He just isn't in a hurry." I said nothing, but something inside me tightened. Then, without warning, Bingley left. No explanation, no farewell, just gone. Jane wrote him a letter. The reply came late, polite, cold. That night, I heard Jane crying. No one else heard it. The house was dark and quiet, but I always heard Jane. And in that moment, something became certain inside me. Darcy was behind this. I didn't know it, but I felt it. Darcy was always beside Bingley. Darcy had decided that Jane wasn't good enough, that she was the sister of someone who wasn't at his level. Maybe I was wrong, but that night, I didn't want to be wrong. I needed someone to blame, and Darcy was there. Then, a new man arrived in town. George Wickham. Officer's uniform, easy smile. The kind of man who made every woman in the room feel like she was the only one he saw. I didn't blush, but I paid attention. One evening at dinner, he sat beside me. "I believe I've seen you before," he said, "at the ball, standing near Darcy." "I was watching Bingley," I said. "He's my sister's friend." "Do you know Darcy?" "Only his name." Wickham was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned slightly closer, voice low, as if sharing something painful. "Darcy's father was my guardian," he said. "He left me an inheritance, a church position, a future, but Darcy refused to honor it. He took everything away." He paused. "I have nothing now, but at least I have my honesty." I looked at him. His voice had trembled. His eyes were steady, but sad. I believed him. That night, I thought about Darcy's cold stare. I thought about Jane crying in the dark. I thought about Bingley's sudden silence. And I thought about Wickham's trembling voice. Everything fit perfectly. Maybe that's exactly why I should have doubted it. But I didn't, because it is very easy to hate someone like Darcy. And sometimes, people choose what is easy. Winter gave way to spring. I visited my friend Charlotte, now married to a man named Collins, a distant relative of ours, pompous and self-important, but stable. Charlotte chose security over love. I used to think that was sad. Now I wasn't so sure. Charlotte lived near a great estate belonging to a woman named Lady Catherine of Bourgh. Collins worshipped her, spoke about her constantly with a mixture of admiration and fear. I disagreed with Lady Catherine twice, in 2 days. Collins nearly fainted. Charlotte smiled carefully, but Lady Catherine looked at me with something unexpected in her eyes. Not respect, curiosity, as if no one had spoken back to her in decades. Then, one morning, walking alone in the garden, I saw Darcy. I stopped. He stopped. For a long moment, we simply stood there, a gravel path between us, saying absolutely nothing. "Miss Bennet," he said finally. "Mr. Darcy," I said. We walked on. But my heart wouldn't slow down. I told myself it was anger, surprise, nothing more. Darcy was Lady Catherine's nephew. He visited often, and somehow, every morning that week, he appeared in the same garden. The first day, I thought it was coincidence. The second day, I became suspicious. The third day, I understood. It was not coincidence. We talked, carefully, about weather, then books, then music. Darcy didn't speak empty words. Every sentence had weight. But there was always distance, like he was speaking from behind glass. Sometimes I said things deliberately to irritate him, not entirely on purpose, but not entirely by accident either. One afternoon, I said something sharp and unexpected, and Darcy laughed, just a little, almost too small to notice, but he laughed, and I froze. It was a rainy afternoon. Charlotte and Collins had gone out. I was alone, reading by the window. A knock at the door. I opened it. Darcy. Rain dripping from his coat, face tense, eyes uncertain, genuinely uncertain, which I had never seen before. He stepped inside, said nothing for a moment, looked out the window. Then he turned and looked at me. "Miss Bennet," he said, "no matter how much I've tried to resist this, I cannot." I didn't move. "I know your family's situation. I know your social position. Despite all of that," he stopped, then said it plainly, "I want to marry you." The room went silent. I stood very still, trying to understand what I had just heard. Darcy was proposing to me. But what kind of proposal was this? "I know your family's situation. I know your social position. Despite all of that." Despite that word. Something warmed inside me and then froze immediately. Because this was pride, the same pride as the night of the ball, just wrapped in more elegant words. He wasn't offering me a partnership. He was offering me a pardon. I stood up slowly. "Thank you for your offer," I said. My voice came out calm. That surprised even me. But no. Darcy went completely still. No? Yes. No. He took a step toward me. Miss Bennet, I believe. I heard you clearly, I said. You said, despite your family situation, despite your social position. That means you see something lacking in me, and you're choosing me anyway, as if that's a gift. I paused. That is not a proposal. That is a favor, and I do not depend on anyone's favor. Darcy said nothing. So I kept going, because I had started and I couldn't stop. Were you the one who separated my sister from Bingley? His eyes changed, just slightly, but I saw it. Jane cried that night, I said. She told no one, but I heard her. So tell me, was it you? A long silence. Yes, but Jane didn't seem. And Wickham? I said. You destroyed that man's life. You refused to give him what your father left for him. Darcy's face shifted. It was anger now, but underneath it, something else. Something that looked almost like pain. You don't know me, he said quietly. I've had enough time to know you, I said, and this is what I've seen. He said nothing more. He walked to the door, opened it, stopped at the threshold. Without turning around, he spoke. I hope one day you understand that you were mistaken. And he left. I stood in the middle of the room for a long time. My hands were trembling, but I wasn't crying. Bennet girls didn't cry. I had told the truth. I had said everything I needed to say. So why was there this weight inside me? Why couldn't I stop thinking about his last words? That night, I told myself the same thing over and over. I did the right thing. I did the right thing. I did the right thing. The next morning, there was an envelope under the door. My name, Darcy's handwriting. I placed it on the table. I looked at it for a long time, because if I opened it, something might change, and I wasn't sure I wanted anything to change. But I have always been curious. That may be my greatest flaw. I opened it. The letter was long, longer than I expected. The handwriting was careful, measured, as if every line had been written and rewritten through the night. He began, I am not writing this to defend what I said yesterday. I only want you to know the truth. What you think afterward is entirely your decision. I stopped. That was not the beginning I expected. I expected pride. I expected a defense. This was different. He wrote about Bingley first. Yes, I separated your sister from my friend. I watched Jane carefully. I saw how Bingley looked at her. But Jane always smiled the same way, at everyone in every situation. I couldn't be certain what she felt. I made a decision I believed was protecting him. I was wrong. I see that now. If your sister truly loves Bingley, then this is my greatest mistake, and I accept full responsibility. My hands went still. I thought about Jane looking out the window, Jane saying, I hope, instead of yes or no, Jane crying alone in the dark. Darcy had been wrong, but at least he knew it. I kept reading. Then I reached the part about Wickham. I braced myself, but it wasn't what I expected. I have known George Wickham since childhood. My father cared for him deeply. The inheritance was real. I never denied it. Wickham first accepted the church position. Then he changed his mind. He wanted money instead. I gave it to him. We made a legal agreement. I believed it was finished. I read it again. He continued. Years later, Wickham returned. He said he still wanted the position. I refused. By then, I knew about the gambling debts, the towns he'd left behind, the way he presented himself to people. But that was not the worst of it. I turned the page. My hands weren't steady. The worst of it was my sister, Georgiana. She was 15. Wickham wrote to her regularly. He presented himself as an old friend. He gained her trust. He suggested they run away together. She agreed, because she was 15 and alone, and Wickham is very persuasive. I stopped breathing. I discovered it at the last moment. Georgiana told me. She was crying. She told me later that Wickham's true intention had been her inheritance. Without that money, he would have done nothing. She understood this. Too late, but she understood. I have told no one to protect her name, but you asked me to answer for Wickham, and I cannot lie. I put the letter down. I looked out the window. The garden was wet. The trees were still dripping. I sat down, and I thought. I thought about Wickham's trembling voice at dinner, his sad eyes, how real it had all seemed. Why had I believed him? Because I wanted to hate Darcy. Because he had said I wasn't at his level. Because on the night Jane cried, I needed someone to be guilty, and Darcy was convenient. I had judged him, without knowing anything, with nothing but my own anger. I read the letter 3 more times. Each time, I saw something different. The first time, Darcy's explanation. The second time, Georgiana, 15 years old, alone, deceived. The third time, myself. I was proud. I thought I was smart. I believed I understood people. I had failed to see Wickham, and I had refused to see Darcy. Both were my fault. I returned home. My mother was standing at the door. Her face wasn't worried. It was broken. "Elizabeth," she said. "Lydia." Something dropped inside me. "What happened?" "She's gone," my mother said. "She ran away with Wickham." The world tilted. Wickham. The man who had tried to steal Georgiana's future, the man in debt, the man with the easy smile and the trembling voice. And Lydia, 16 years old, careless and bright and completely unprepared. If they didn't marry, if Wickham abandoned her, our family's name would be destroyed. My sister's futures would be gone. Jane's fragile hope with Bingley would be finished. Everything. My father had gone to London to find them. My Uncle Gardner had followed. At home, my mother wept. My sisters sat in silence. Jane waited by the window with her hands folded in her lap. I went to my room, closed the door, and for the first time, I cried. Because this was also my fault. I had known what Wickham was. I had read Darcy's letter, and I had said nothing, because I'd wanted to protect Georgiana's secret. But I hadn't protected Lydia. Days passed with no news. And every night, lying awake in the dark, I thought the same thing. What if Darcy were here? He knew Wickham. He knew how Wickham thought, where he would go, who he would trust. But I couldn't go to Darcy, not after everything I had said to him, not after the way I had looked at him. Then one morning, my uncle arrived. His face was different, not relieved, but resolved. "They were found," he said. My mother screamed with joy. My sisters rushed forward. I only looked at my uncle. "How?" I said. He paused. "Someone paid Wickham's debts," he said quietly. "Someone arranged the wedding. Someone found them a new life. Someone handled everything quietly, without wanting his name to be known." "Who?" I asked. The question was unnecessary. I already knew. "Darcy," my uncle said. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat without moving for a very long time. Darcy had done it, without anyone asking, without anyone knowing, after I had rejected him, after I had accused him, after I had thrown every wrong assumption in his face. And still, he had saved my family. That night, I sat by the window. Outside was dark, the town was quiet, and for the first time, I thought about Darcy. Not his pride, not his coldness. Him, who he really was, why he wrote that letter, why he had done something so enormous while expecting absolutely nothing in return. Something inside me turned. Heavy. Silence. Impossible to undo. Lydia came home. But the Lydia who returned wasn't the one who had left. The girl who left laughed loudly, took everything lightly. Life was a game and rules were for other people. The Lydia who walked through the door was quiet. She and Wickham had married. Official. Done. My mother was flying with relief. I said nothing. Then Bingley returned. No announcement, no warning. One morning, a knock at the door. And there he was. Same warm smile, same open face. Darcy was not beside him. Bingley stepped inside. My mother poured tea, my sisters whispered. But Bingley's eyes searched for Jane the moment he entered. He found her, and he didn't look anywhere else again. I slipped out into the garden, sat alone. There was a strange feeling inside me. Not quite joy, not quite sadness. Something missing, like a space that should have been filled. Then I heard a voice from the garden gate. "Miss Bennet." I turned. Darcy, standing at the gate, coat slightly damp from the road, hair disordered by the wind. He had come with Bingley, but he hadn't gone inside. He had come to the garden. He had been looking for me. I stood. My knees weren't entirely steady, but I stood. "Mr. Darcy," I said. He walked toward me. But this wasn't the Darcy from the ballroom, not the cold man who had looked down at everyone, not the man who left with my anger still ringing in his ears. This Darcy was tired. I didn't tell anyone Darcy's name, because I knew he didn't want it known. Even the hands that had fixed everything had stayed hidden, and that secrecy shook me more than anything. Before Lydia left for her new town, she stopped me at the door. "Elizabeth," she said. "What?" She paused. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "I'm sorry," she said. I hugged her. Because sometimes words aren't enough. Then Bingley returned. No announcement, no warning. One morning, a knock at the door. And there he was. Same warm smile, same open face. Darcy was not beside him. Bingley stepped inside. My mother poured tea, my sisters whispered, but Bingley's eyes searched for Jane the moment he entered. He found her. And he didn't look anywhere else again. I slipped out into the garden, sat alone. There was a strange feeling inside me, not quite joy, not quite sadness, something missing, like a space that should have been filled. Then I heard a voice from the garden gate. "Miss Bennet." I turned. Darcy, standing at the gate, coat slightly damp from the road, hair disordered by the wind. He'd come with Bingley, but he hadn't gone inside. He'd come to the garden. He'd been looking for me. I stood. My knees weren't entirely steady, but I stood. "Mr. Darcy," I said. He walked toward me, but this wasn't the Darcy from the ballroom. Not the man who had left with my anger still ringing in his ears. This Darcy was tired. Tired the way only a real person gets tired. "I didn't know you had come," I said. "Bingley wanted to visit." He paused. "And I wanted to see you once more." Silence. The wind moved through the garden. Leaves turned. "Darcy," I said. It felt strange, saying his name without the title. First time I ever had. He looked at me. "I know what you did," I said. "The Lydia matter, all of it." His expression tightened. "Who told you?" "That's not what matters." I paused. Finding the right words took longer than I expected. "I'm sorry." He said nothing. "I treated you unfairly," I said. "I believed Wickham. I took your words about my family and turned them into pride. I didn't listen to you. I didn't want to see you clearly." I met his eyes. I was wrong. Silence. You were also wrong about Bingley and Jane, I said, and you know that. I know, he said quietly. So we were both wrong. He looked at me, and for the first time, truly the first time, I couldn't see that glass wall in his eyes. It was gone. There was only him, tired, real, human. There's something I have to ask you, he said. Ask. After the proposal, after everything, he paused. Do you still feel the same? I didn't answer immediately. From inside the house, I heard Jane's voice. She was laughing, loudly, that full, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. That meant Bingley had said something. That meant things were being settled. I felt something unknot inside me. No, I said, I don't feel the same. Darcy's breathing changed. The day I first saw you, he said slowly, I said something unforgivable. I told myself you hadn't heard. I had. I know. I understood later. He stopped. I'm not ashamed because I said those words. I'm ashamed because I believed them, because they weren't true. Not in any way. My eyes burned. I was not going to cry. Bennett girls didn't cry, but my eyes burned. My feelings haven't changed, Darcy said. Only I have changed. Or I'm trying to. He stopped again. Then, if there is still any possibility, yes, I said. He went still. Yes? Yes. From inside the house, Jane laughed again, and I laughed too. Darcy looked surprised. Why are you laughing? Jane, I said. I can hear my sister. She hasn't laughed like that in a long time. Something passed across his face. Regret, relief, perhaps both. I'm glad, he said quietly. So am I. That evening, my father called me into his study. He didn't open his book. His eyes weren't on the page. Darcy, he said. Nothing more. Yes, I said. Do you love him? I paused. Love was a heavy word, not one to be spoken lightly. I know him, I said. Truly know him. And of all the people I know, he is the one I respect the most. My father watched me for a long moment. Then he laughed, that rare, quiet, genuine laugh. That's yes in your language, he said. Go. The wedding was in spring. 2 weddings, one day. Jane and Bingley, Elizabeth and Darcy. My mother cried from morning until noon and soaked 3 handkerchiefs. My father sat beside her, said nothing, but held her hand. That small, quiet picture was the most beautiful thing I saw all day. Jane wore white. She was radiant, calm, at peace. I wore white too, but inside me there was no calm. There was only one thought. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. At the end of the ceremony, Darcy came to me. He looked at me. I looked at him. Do you regret it? He said, joking, but with a small, real question underneath. Do you? I said. Never. Neither do I. When we stepped outside, April sunlight was waiting, thin and hesitant, but present. My mother was shouting something behind us. Jane was laughing. Bingley struck Darcy on the shoulder. My sisters waved from the steps. Life was continuing. It always continued. And this time, for the first time in a very long time, I was completely at peace with it. 3 months after the man who humiliated me in front of everyone at the town ball, I saw him again. This time, he was asking me to marry him. And this time, I said yes. If this story stayed with you, leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. The next one is already waiting.